Welcome, everyone, on this Saturday before Easter. Welcome to the wild, wonderful, and wacky world of the Word. But it's also a wonderful world as well, so keep that in mind. I'm looking at our gospel text for Sunday, Easter Sunday. And we have a choice. We could either go with Luke or with John. We can do either one of those resurrection stories. But this is what is often troubling to people. They say, I sit down and I read the Bible, I read the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and, it doesn't always make sense. And so why doesn't it make sense? Well, it says this in Mark and this in Matthew and this in Luke and this in John, and they just don't all coincide, meaning our resurrection appearances. They're not the same. There's different people at the tomb. Different things are happening, and people get kind of confused by that. And I'm here to say, yeah, it's a wild, weird, and wacky world of the Word, but don't be confused and don't get overexcited about it. Think about it this way. That I've mentioned this before. That family reunion you went to, and you started talking all about the stories of that old wild Uncle Bill that you have. Yeah, some of those stories coincided, but the details weren't quite the same, right? We all have different remembrances. Not only do we have different remembrances, we have different ways that those actual events touched us. And not only did they touch us in different ways, that also influences the way we retell the story. Think about that. Our Gospels were written over a 40 to 50 year time period. Mark, just to very much oversimplify it, Mark would be in the 50s and 60s, somewhere in there, AD. Matthew 70, Luke 80 or so, and then the Gospel of John 90 to 100. So quite a time span. But a lot of time in order to gather together and collect different stories. The Gospels themselves. Luke is saying, he's writing to someone called Theophilus. Oh, Theophilus, yeah, I'm writing you this story because so many others have tried to write their story of Jesus, and I think I have the best one. Well, Luke didn't say it that way, but he puts together a remarkable story about Jesus, and it's all to bring us the word of life. The Gospel of John is the same way. John is the most reflective of all of them. In fact, his way of putting together the Gospel is totally different from Matthew, Mark, and Luke. But it's an awesome story. It's a way that talks about how Jesus touched his life and the life of others. And come on, you have all these stories laying around that you've accumulated over the years. You got to put them together somehow. You put them together in order to tell people about Jesus in a way that they're going to come to believe in him and to take on the kingdom life that Jesus talks about. Okay, that's greatly oversimplifying it, but when you approach the resurrection narratives, do the same thing. Take each one for what it's worth, for what the gospel writer wants to get across to us. And just briefly, because we're really going to get into it tomorrow, when we go to the Gospel of Luke, which I have chosen to look at, you have a lot of different things going on there that are different from the other Gospels, but it's all about getting the point across as to who this Jesus is. Did he really mean what he said before he was hung on the cross, that he would rise again? And how does that affect our lives now? There's some beautiful things within this gospel. The women, all the women who went to the tomb, where are the guys at? The disciples, they've kind of disappeared. The women went to do a beautiful and honorable thing to anoint Jesus' body for his burial, because when he was laid in the tomb, it was the Sabbath. They weren't allowed to do that. They had to wait till the next day. And of course, as the women go, they see the stone rolled away, and they're looking like, what happened to Jesus? And they get yelled at by two angels. Yeah, did you notice that? The angels didn't say, oh, don't be afraid. They do that in Matthew and Mark. But here they go, what are you doing here? Don't you remember he told you he wasn't going to be here? Why do you seek the living among the dead? I would have loved to have seen that scene. And they're all going, well, where is he? You get into the Gospel of John, and you have something even a little bit different in which you have angels kind of pop in and out of the tomb. You have Jesus himself standing outside of the tomb, and Mary thinks he's the gardener. And it's beautiful, beautiful stuff. But it all talks about how Jesus affects us as his people, and how Jesus comes to us in many, many different ways. And we experience his love in many, many different ways. We're going to kind of stop short of all the resurrection appearances in the Gospel of Luke. And in fact, the portion of Scripture we're going to read on this Sunday, tomorrow, doesn't even have an appearance by Jesus. Those will come later in the 24th chapter of Luke. And they're beautiful appearances that tell us to remember him in word, indeed, in the sacrament, in Holy Communion. So don't get all kind of crazy and goofy and wondering, why are there such differences in these resurrection appearances? There are differences because there's different people that wrote about it, and they all experienced Jesus in different but wonderful ways. Yep, and that's the wild, weird, and wacky world of the Word for you. Blessings be with you on this day before Easter.